Manong Llewellyn. Thank you for joining us for the talk this morning. The title is Music Wheelchairs and the Choice to Die at Home. It's led by Iqbal Naroth, and he's joined by Shelburne, Nadia, and Ari as well. So I will go through Iqbal's bio, and then Iqbal will introduce the other speakers. So Iqbal uses a wheelchair as a result of a motorbike crash whilst competing in an off-road event. After 2 years of rehabilitation, he adapted a quad bike and got back to his sport again. He participated in the Quads for Quads off-road event from Durban to Joburg, providing his grit and determination to return to the sport he loved. He also swims regularly and exercises by pushing up and down the accessible beachfront on the Durban's Golden Mile. He got back to driving when he adapted his vehicle and started Laminated Rotis, a band which plays at venues in the city. Most importantly, he's economically active in his architectural practice, which with achievements by having recently designed the new Point Branch Court, Al Khadi Hospital, Molweni School, and S.J. Smith residential units. All these are based on universal design principles. He shares his knowledge to students of architecture and design by lecturing at UKZN, DUT, and abroad at University of Design in India. He is committed to the principles of universal design and serves as the disability sector on the disability sector on the SABS committee, which reviews science part as 10400 deemed to satisfy regulation for design for disabilities. Iqbal and the team, over to you.
Thank you. Morning, all. I'm going to talk and partly read because I can never bloody remember everything at my old age. So there's a bit of a pun in the title because it's about music which influences my architecture and is a basis kind of drop back all the time. It's a little bit about wheelchairs, which I don't really want to talk about because we all know about wheelchairs. And it's mainly about the choice to die at home. And when I say die at home, it's about if we design our building so that we can have 4 generations worked out in their meaning, and I'm talking from experience, that I got my mom who's 94, I've got me who's like 105, and then I got my kids, and then I got my kids' kids. So there's 4 generations which go through the home, and hopefully, we don't have to send my mom to old age home. I might go to old age home to get away from all these people, and it's about us designing the house, and we know all these things because we live it every day. It's how do we design and what's the kind of lifestyle of designing a home and not a house. And there's a difference with it. It's a home that has the warmth in it. So that's what the talk is about. And the talk is non-Google, it's non-social medias. The talk is my experiences, Nadia's experiences, Chyvs' experiences, and the other people's experiences of first-hand information of how do we live, how do they live, how does my grandchild live, and how does my mother live, and what can we do architecturally to actually make all our lives comfortable, not my mother's, but the whole intergenerational thing, meaning from 94 down to 4, so they all can enjoy the house. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And remember, or the kind of statistics is about 20% of people finish off in a home and another 30% finish off in a retirement village and stuff like that, places like La Domaine. Reason being, we haven't kind of looked at what do we need when we get a bit older. So I'm going to talk about that. And my friend Nadia has been working with me for about 10 years, and she's a strange person because she's a neuropsychologist and a big story. And she brings to my party a whole new perspective in how to think about how we design. When I did my master's, she helped me a lot with universal design, not from an architectural point of view, but from a social and emotional point of view. So that's what she brings to the party, and that's what Nadia is going to talk about. And this young man next to me, Chyvs, has joined me 2 years ago. A talented little boy. He's doesn't want to do architecture. He wants to draw comic strips, so I kind of force him to do architecture. But he again has lived an intergenerational life. He still lives an intergenerational life where he has his grandmother there, his mother there, him there, and hopefully he might produce some children, and then we'll have them also there. So Chyvs is going to talk about the daily things that people do to keep them happy. And then finally, Ari is going to come in, and Ari is going to scold all of us. That's Ari. But it's going to be interesting because he comes from an angle which is totally different from us, in that John Searlis' mum, without anybody knowing, made sure his environment was friendly to him, and then went out to the whole of Durban, went out to South Africa, went and studied in Leeds, and came back with huge information from us. And she was a mentor of note, not only to me, but to all of us. We all kind of look up to her. She was a great guide. So that's what today is about. And what I'm encouraging is, I'm not pontificating, nor is anybody here pontificating. We need to do a cross talk and talk about our experiences and how we can take this into our thing. I'm currently involved in a new housing project, and I've chosen to do 2 houses, and these houses are for people who have houses in Musgrave Road. They want to move out of there, scale down, and finish their lives in this new estate. So that's what the chat's about. We've got to start a conference, not with a prayer, but with some music. So I'm going to play you some music now, and a scene where there's an architect called Balakrishna Doshi who died, who's my mentor. Okay, here we go. We never notice light. We just assume it. But when an object is created around it, it creates a nuance. It is an effort. Each step of the ladder is different. But with each step, you gain a new perspective. Not just see and admire nature. Inhale it. Experience comes first. Form much later. Create a bond. A sense of belonging. Not just with the physical form, but with eyes,
sound, with senses, and then the landscape will begin to appear. The question I asked, what was important? Was it the form of the building or the content, the space? Look around. Every object around us, the nature itself, lights, sky, water, stone, everything is in a symphony. And this symphony is what architecture is all about. My work is the story of my life, continuously evolving, changing and searching. Searching to take away the word architecture and look only at life.
Great. This guy, for those who don't know it, worked on the core, and for me, he achieved more than core because he brought human beings into his buildings and didn't get stuck in Pelosi and theories of architecture, and Great Corp did that. But Doshi brought a big human element into architecture, and he's really worth kind of looking at because he talks about things which will touch your heart. It's like he says, every time you place a window, you're placing a window to God. It's not copy paste window type 1. It's not a window type 1. It's the window that you place. It's such a great thing. Each time you place a window wherever, think about its placement and don't think about copy paste cut and put it there and that's it in a W1 600 by 200. Think about the window. What are you looking out at? What it's looking into? So that's Doshi. I'm going to now hand you over to Chyvs.
Good morning, everyone. I trust that everyone is doing well and healthy, and your families are well and healthy as well. Today we'd like to talk about a little mindfulness that we have been looking at in terms of Nadia's beloved mom, Ikki's mom, and my grandmom, which we all have living in our households or in and around our area. And we've identified about 6 to 7 different principles that basically cultivate what it is to live deeply and practice mindfulness on a level that allows you to live in the present moment completely. And I would just like to go across with this. So this does involve traditional means of Hinduism and Sanskrit teachings together with the traditional means of Japanese Kaizen. And yes, I'd like to take you through it. So point one is simply self-care. It's a simple thing in the morning that we love to recycle everything in this world and we love to be green conscious, but we forget to recycle our air, essentially. We love to live in these closed boxes with air conditionings on. I say this right now, and there's an air conditioner blowing right now at me. So yeah, I guess we're all hypocrites to some degree. But a simple thing that I've noticed my grandmom do is open the windows to complete fresh air in the morning, and essentially you open your life to a new day and a brand new day and a recycle of life, essentially. So a simple thing like opening a window in a day can prolong and extend your life to a great degree and also allow you to welcome the day with a fresh new breath, pun intended, by the way. Yes. The second point that we like to go to, which I've noticed personally from observing my grandmom for the past 26 years, I'd say, is that she is always slowing down and smelling the roses. She's completely in the present moment. She's not moving with a need to get from point A to point B, but enjoying the little extruded moments in between those two letters to say. And the simple act of being present and mindful allows you to fully feel your presence in this earth. And we are constantly moving with such a fast-paced life, instant gratification at every point of the day. But how often do we remember to breathe mindfully? How often do we remember that to feel our heartbeats, essentially? And I think by doing these small tasks, we allow ourselves to sit in the present moment, and in there we open ourselves to an entire array of possibility. The next point that I would like to touch on is points 3 and 4. And this is in terms of imbibing the senses. My grandmom is constantly going out into the garden. There's a vast array of flowers that we have that their fresh scent bellows with the wind and just comes into the house, and it's quite lovely. A lot of flowers like jasmine and lavender, which are also very healing in their regard, are always pervading the entire room. And in terms of scents that we don't think about, the sense of dried chili being braised on the stove, the smell of a fresh curry while you at, say, your home, or well-cooked meal. All of these things have a haptic feedback within our mind that allows a neural development of some sort, and we assign memory to that. And in memory, we allow ourselves to almost travel back in time. It's a very beautiful thing. It's a very unconscious thing that goes completely overlooked. But how often do you walk into your home and realize that there's a beautiful curry being cooked, and you're like, ah, okay, I'm home. It's a little signifier, essentially. The next point would be the senses of sunlight. In traditional Islamic means and traditional Hinduism teachings, we have the Fajr namaz, and in its translation into Hinduism, it's called Surya Namaskar, which is sun salutations. Everyone in this world is constantly attracted to the sun, like a moth to a flame, and it gives us complete life and energy. And it's the most strangest thing, because the sun is a dying white dwarf star, yet it permeates life. So I suppose in the topic of dying at home, we have this beautiful sun who is dying in its place, but yet it gives us life and prolongs life and propagates life in the most beautiful regard possible. The next point I'd like to go to is, which is very traditional in the Indian household, is like we like to gather stuff, and we have a sort of hoarding mentality. A simple act of not just spring cleaning during the season of spring on its own, but spring cleaning throughout every moment in your life or every moment in your day allows this decluttering aspect of your life. And a lot of the times we tend to declutter our space around us, which definitely assists in terms of the visual sense of the space we're in. But we forget to declutter our mind with what we've been storing as well. And the simple act of mindfully decluttering our space and allowing these spaces not to be minimal in essence, but to allow them to breathe and to allow life to flow through them, allows life to flow through us in that sense. And in that same sense, we allow more space for things that we truly enjoy to pervade our life. And yes, brings me to our next point. I've always watched my my grandma. We call her my ayah. That's the traditional Tamil essence of the word. We always see that she's always washing something, be it from the spinach or the herbs before she cleans it, or washing the pots. And we'd like to tell her, like, you know, ayah, can you kindly like stop? You don't have to be in the kitchen all the time, or you don't have to do this, or you don't have to do that. But when the body is not moving, it becomes idle. And if we look at ourselves as these biological machines, we will rust essentially if we stagnate. And the simple act of washing things is actually washing away these thoughts that we have that have been collecting and stagnating. Bruce Lee would always say, like, you have to be like water, my friend. Now water can flow or water can crash. Essentially what he meant by that, if I had to take it to my ayah does not practice martial arts whatsoever. I'm not saying that, but I'm simply saying that still water is stagnant and flowing water is fresh. Allowing this water to flow on your hands and to be mindful with the haptic feedback that it brings to your senses allows you to, again, become one with yourself and delve into the present moment. And from this, we could design our spaces to incorporate the various elements like scent, fire in terms of that, we could allow ourselves to introduce water spaces into our home to allow evaporative cooling to permeate the space essentially. These are simple things, but this entire design ideology came from simply washing one's hands. Yes, and then I'd like to go to our next topic, which would be cleaning. Again, by Aya, constantly cleaning. It forms in the same hand of decluttering that I've just touched upon. And it's not just decluttering of the mind, but it's also keeping your space clean. So essentially in South Africa, a lot of our individuals have cleaners around that are constantly cleaning every day. But it's a thing that we have to think about as well. Like we would like to have and own all these things, but yet we can't even take care of them. And I'm not sure if you guys have watched Fight Club, but essentially the things we own end up owning us if we do not take care of them. So yeah, I think that I've seen my grandmom just completely clean the space constantly, and in that way, it's not just a physical cleanse that's happening, but it's an internal cleanse. And yes, so gathering all these aspects of just observing Nadia's mom, Iki's mom, and my grandmom, how do we now take these concepts and apply them to architecture, you say? We're working on a property in Beechwood, and what does washing one's hands have to do with designing properties that are selling for 6 to 20 million, you ask? So essentially what we are doing is we're doing a little mindfulness experiment of observing the people around us. We are constantly focused on the planes, the trajectory, the topography, or all the sites and the land and what materials we're going to do and how much we're going to assign to the design elements. But we forget the user, essentially. We forget the people that we are designing for. We forget the fact that you, me, us, everyone on this conversation, everyone around us in a 5-kilometer radius are living architects and living beings of biological architecture that are currently walking around.
Hey, you're taking
Yes.
my speech away.
And how do we design for this? So essentially, this is what we've culminated as little aspects to do mindfulness design. Thank you. Yes, I'll hand you over to Iki now.
As I said, Chyvs comes from a total fresh angle to me. It brings a kind of total different way to look at things. He doesn't see things as iconic structures, and his whatever he says is what he practices. So if you guys want to have a little kind of question with Chyvs, please let's do it. Let's ask him a couple of questions, and he's for the little boy. He's got a lot of big stories.
Thank you, Charles. I think that was interesting. I love the concept of decluttering. I think sometimes we overcommit ourselves to things and we forget even what priorities are. It's true that if you don't manage your space or the things around you, you may think that you own them, but they end up owning you, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially that does fall true. It's a sad thing, but yeah, it is the truth, and we have to swallow that hard pill.
Any comment, any question? Okay, Iki, we can go to the next topic.
Okay, next guest is my friend Nadia, and she's going to give you guys some big words. So get your dictionaries out because she's going to blow you guys out with big words.
He lies. So I'd like you to actually think about, I mean, architects, you think about art, but I'd also now like you to take a little step further and think about architects as therapists. So when you're designing a space, you actually integrating art and therapy. Chyvs mentioned something about the smells of places or houses. And as we age, you know, we think, we all going to get these aging conditions called dementia or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And we know that if you age in place, if you keep things that are sort of your routine, if you are surrounded by familiar spaces and places, that this actually prevents those kind of conditions. So smells, that's something we do when we talk about reminiscent therapy. Okay, big words. Thanks, Chyvs. Next one. So yes, Iqbal always refers to Frank Lloyd Wright, and it's true. No house should ever be on a hill. It should be off the hill, right? Hill and house should live together, each the happier for the other. And that is what I think I'm talking about when we talk about healing spaces. So why does architecture need this neuroscience lens? So we know that environments influence stress levels, cognitive load, your orientation, the way you walk, your balance, your emotions and how you regulate them, your social interaction, and your long-term recovery trajectory. These relationships, we know, are established in the fields of what we call environmental psychology, sensory processing research, and what I'm passionate about, which is neurorehabilitation. So while we understand this, right, we know, and evidence shows us this, that the built environment can either support or inhibit healing. So what's the thing we want to take away from here? Leave the big words. Buildings are therapeutic tools. That architecture is not passive. You actively facilitate recovery and well-being. So when you build, we think about lowering stress levels, right? Cognitive load is something like having 20 windows open on your laptop. And it's sort of, you get that lag, right? And freezing. So think about your life in the same way, right? We need spaces that help us to reduce cognitive load, right? Your orientation. Some buildings can make you feel very disorientated. I mean, I go to certain malls and I panic if I can't park where I usually park, because your sense of direction is impacted. Your gait, how you walk, where you walk, your balance not only on a motor level, but your balance in terms of your psychological well-being. And when you talk about that, we talk about emotional regulation. I mean, we often have been into spaces and you think, oh, I don't feel well here, right? What is that doing to me, right? We also have to remember, the stats are scary about the number of people who are now diagnosed to be on the autistic spectrum or neurodiverse. So when we talk inclusivity, everybody thinks, it's about wheelchairs. It's more than that, right? So we know we can either do this, support healing, or inhibit it. So sensory architecture, designing for the whole nervous system. So I'm very involved in looking at people on the spectrum, autistic spectrum. And what we're finding is that, boys present very differently from girls. and we can diagnose boys quite early. But I have young adults who are female who will do a search or look on the social media and contact me because they've been having these feelings of spaces, and they think, I think I'm on the spectrum. Can you confirm that? So sensory exploration of spaces, right? Clinically, we use multisensory environments. So to improve attention, your motor planning, memory, the way sometimes you drive from home to work and you think, wait a minute, how did I get here? Right? Because you do it automatically. And emotional stability. So you need to remember things like touch, texture, tactile, transitions from one space into another, muted lighting, something that is visually calming to your senses. Sound damping, because unfortunately, we all have auditory overload right now. And when your senses are going like this, you can't regulate yourself. Very important, right? So what's the why behind this? Everybody accuses me of saying that why is my favorite thing to say, but it's true. You've got a question. So the why is, you vary, or you try and vary things, but you have a controlled, what I call sensory input. So lighting can change, and you can mute it. Like when you open a window and the sun comes in, at a certain point of the day, you want to bring down a blind. You want to turn on a dimmer switch so it's not so bright. Your brain needs at some point to switch off, right? And that is why we struggle with sleeping. A lot of us struggle because we're not allowing that natural cycle to happen. So to reduce agitation in individuals with neurological vulnerabilities, and you think, oh, that is a very minor part of society. Actually, it isn't. We all a little bit ADHD, we all a little bit stressed out, and we all a little bit on the spectrum. Okay, so neurodiversity, big word, but it's about, let's be mindful about our sensory environment, right? And of course, aging. So what is this thing about aging? We know the WHO has said categorically the number of people over 60 has actually far overtaken the number of children under 5. The whole world is not ready for a population that is living longer, right? So our design in what we do and how we do it needs to factor this into being. So your lovely marble everywhere is a problem, because as you get older, that's a risk for falls. So this is important for things like, I say, dementia, and cognitive rehab supports this. So familiar cues, color-coded cues, simple icons that help you orientate. And of course, if you know where you're going, it reduces anxiety. So what is this aging in place? So we're designing, and everybody's talking about it. In some countries, they place preschools with old age homes because they know the therapeutic benefits of it. So we should be emphasizing intergenerational living and communication. It's a beautiful thing to see a little one and an older person giggle together. So neuropsychology of connection. Human contact is protective of your mood, your immune system, and of course of your brain. So intergenerational engagement improves your emotional stability and reduces loneliness. Loneliness is the killer. Connection and human contact is the answer. So things like shared courtyards, shared spaces, communal places where we can come together and share food, transitional places where you can bring in the outdoors into your indoors, how you arrange seating so that families can talk to each other, not sit on a device and shovel food. Micro zones of private interaction. So even if you're designing workspaces, these are the things you should consider. So sensory safe intergenerational design. So we're designing for different ages in the same place, right? Because all of us have different sensory thresholds. So what is an adult to versus a child? And we need to make furniture easy to reconfigure. So modular designs. Thank you. Yeah. So we talk about this biophilic and immune supportive spaces, bringing the outside in, right? And there's this big word that Iqbal says I like, psychoneuroimmunology, okay? How do we make spaces healing and better our health, including your brain, okay? We know this, exposure to greenery, right? So you want something that reduces that flight-fright mechanism, decrease adrenaline, cortisol, decrease inflammation, improve balance, mood, and stability. Right, your why. Shift is to buildings that morph from functional structures to regenerative environments that have empathy, neurobiological insights, sensory intelligence, and human dignity should be at the core of your design matrix. Yeah. So architecture is life, or at least it is life itself taking form. Okay. So, I mean, for me, this is looking at it from a different perspective. And Iqbal talks about an architect who's blind, Chris Downey. And Chris Downey says that his blindness has actually enhanced his ability to be a good architect. And you think, okay, that just does not work. But it does, because it makes you more aware of your sensory environment. Okay, any questions?
They all left.
I can see that.
They're all gone. Skula, has everybody run away?
No, we're all here. We're all here, absorbed.
Nadia blew them out.
Thank you so much for the talk, Nadia. Things definitely to consider as architects. There is Rose Harbor and then Johan after Rose. Rose, please.
Hi, Roz. Roz, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I can go for it, Rose.
Still on mute.
Whilst Roz is sorting it out, if I can just have a comment.
Go on,
That was fascinating. That was fascinating what you went through there. Us older people have all had parents that have either stayed with us or gone to homes and have passed on. And all I want to comment on is everything you said there is so succinct and goes to prove that architecture isn't about bricks and mortar. It's about where you put people. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Are you back, Rose? Maybe there's a problem with the speaker then on Rose's side. Johan, please.
Skura, what a pleasure to enjoy this. You can hear a bit of grogginess in the voice this morning, but at 56, you start thinking about retirement, but it is so psychological. You don't really want to go into retirement. You want to push back because from a specific cultural, you go to a retirement village and you became part of a community of retirees, but you don't feel old. And that psychological pushback in terms of the positioning of retirement villages, it would be quite interesting. As we design one as present in Bloemfontein, did a bit of research there in the Midlands, in Howick, been there at Everglades, and aging in place is a very important point, but the age gentrification, if you wish, for people between 60 and 103, that was what we experienced in that complex. But a new, fresh way of looking at it. But what we miss is the intergenerational aspect. And is retirement then really the right thing to send people to places, not rather having that within a community, if you will? So is there new thinking about this? But I'm really highly excited about the presentation. Very appreciative of that. Thank you so much. Back to you, Skura.
Thank you, Johan. Good point. What would you say about that, Nadia? Isolated uh, retirement homes, if you will.
Yeah. Skuro, I had the privilege of visiting a region in Italy called Reggio Emilia. And the Italians, seem to do things in a good way. Every Italian village has a square, and the square is for people together of different ages. You come together. And Reggio Emilia is a region that's dedicated to education. But in every sort of education facility, and these are preschools, there's also retirement places. And it's wonderful. They come together to eat lunch. The people in the retirement places come to read stories to the children, to play, to interact, to help out. And the children go up and they sing and they're doing art together. It's just a wonderful place. When you think about retirement, it's almost like you're getting ready to die. It should not be that. So let's think about it slightly differently.
Yeah, thank you. I don't see Ross anymore, but I'll go with Hasvi. Hasvi?
Morning, everyone. Thank you for such a important presentation and conversation. Unfortunately, I joined in a bit late, but I would really just want to follow up on, the issue of designing in an inclusive manner, particularly where we are dealing with children on the spectrum. I have a number of friends who have children on the spectrum, and we don't really have specialist schools. Sorry, I'm joining in from Zimbabwe. And how do we, as architects, address that, even at a policy level? to have that inclusivity and maybe a design language, that highlights and brings out the importance of neuro inclusion, if we can put it that way. How do we go about creating policy that stimulates architecture that includes?
Thanks, Harvey. Do you want to give it a shot, Nadia?
Sorry, Skura.
I'm saying, would you like to comment on that?
Oh, we start like this. We start with a conversation, right? And for me, everything should be about inclusivity. So, and we've just got, like I say, think bigger than a wheelchair. So that is key. So let's start these exciting or igniting these conversations, because it's only when you have people with passion for people and places that the world shifts.
Do you want to say something, Iqbal?
No, can we show a little video, please?
Chris,
Rob, I've noted your hand.
We're running short of time. I'll go as fast as we can.
No. I wanted to find out if you wanted to add anything on the comment. You good?
Me? No.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Rob?
I'm a passenger here.
Thanks, Skura.
Sure.
Skura, I just contacted Ros Harbour, and she's having difficulty getting through and unmuting herself. But her comment was one of great appreciation of Nadia's talk. It touched a very close nerve in her family situation, and she appreciates it, and thanks everybody very much for that. I would like to just add that I think that when the drawing process becomes a very easy one of copying icons into a drawing and setting them there, one has lost the ability that one had to use in the old days by using a 2B pencil and drawing it out. And as you drew every line, you had to think of, will this work? What happens with the sunlight? Will it reveal? Will it warm a reveal? What does it do to a windowsill? And I think that maybe in the process of producing work at a very rapid rate, we are losing the tactile and sensory aspects of architecture. Maybe I'm just an old man.
Good point. Thank you so much, Rob. And thank you for the message from Rose. Iqbal, we can go to the next chapter.
Okay, we're going to show you now. We're going to show you a little. No, I want to show you Chris Downey. It's a whole angle on architecture.
It was very unexpected. It was very unexpected. I lost my sight in surgery to remove a brain tumor. An essential part of dealing with my blindness was embracing the challenge. That's sort of that leap of faith you have to take as a designer, as an architect. You never know what the answer is, but you have to believe in the process. Within a month of losing my sight, I went back to the office to start figuring it out. With new technologies, that I can take architectural drawings and print them in tactile form. When I'm reading a floor plan of a building, my mind is actively thinking about all the materials, the composition, the warmth of sun coming through the window, all sorts of things that were always there available to my mind. But in reading drawings with my eyes, I was more passive. I'm always very careful to say that I'm without sight, not without vision. My idea of vision is to see with more than just your eyes.
It's really accessible in a way that our consumers who are in wheelchairs, no walkers, or use canes, they can feel comfortable. Chris taught me that you shouldn't be designing for the average and for the average. That doesn't exist. Anything can happen. one that changes their physical limitations?
The great thing about teaching is being around students. It's great to be able to step out of the profession and to have fresh new perspectives. My advice to students today is to really think about architecture, to see possibilities, to really study things. My vision for architecture is pretty ambitious. It's about so much more than just making a beautiful building. It's about making connections, extending community, and bringing more people together. But to look up is to really appreciate the environment around you, and to look into unexpected places, to see things or experience things that you might otherwise miss out on.
Okay, back to me. Skura.
Yeah, sure. You can go ahead.
So before I'm going to kind of sum up with like the nuts and bolts of what I do, and I've got like 7 little kind of pointers which, if you kind of start thinking with this, with whatever Nadia and Chyvs said, and then these 7 little pointers out, if you think about these pointers and get them into your design or your thought process at the beginning of things, and just keep that at the back of your mind all the time. And I'm not a residential architect, but because I'm doing these things for the last like 3 months, we've now gone deep into how do we want to live in a house. So we're doing 2 houses, and the mindset of these 2 houses is to bring what Nadia is talking about. So she interacts with the user, Chyvs interacts with the user, the rest of my team interact with the user, so they get a very kind of hands-on approach to what are we designing for, who are we designing for, and how do we make their lives really enjoyable. So my kind of idiot's guide to designing a house, and I've made it like 8 little points. So to start with, and all these things are logical, to start with is this: when you're coming to your house, and you can apply this to any building, the first thing you want to do, you want to arrive there, and you want to arrive, and we all arrive in cars. You want to arrive there and get off under a gazebo or a shelter or in the garage. So you get off out of the weather, and you kind of, it's the joy of coming home. It's not the kind of rushing to stop the car and rush into the house. It's the joy of coming home, getting off the car, enjoy the thing that Chyvs was talking about, the feel of every little piece. So when you get off your car, you get off undercover, you either go into your garage. So that's it. So it's a seamless entry and a welcoming entry into your house. So your whole mindset changes even before you get home. If you're in a bad mood, you're in a better mood straight. But imagine you come home and you have to get off the car in driving rain. Forget about if you want a wheelchair or not. But imagine if you're a mom, you got your kid in one hand, you got the pram in the other hand, you got the parcels in the other hand, and in the 5th hand, you got your cell phone. So like a big story to get off the car. So number 1, in ease of design, ensure that you arrive well. If house, public building, or anything, you've got to arrive well, because that's how it all starts. So that's number 1. Then, as far as assistive technology goes, in petrol stations, in hospitals, in shopping centers, and everywhere, when you come to the front door, you don't push the door open. It opens itself for you. Why can't we have this in our houses? Why do you want to come home and clutch that, look for your keys and fight with the key hole, and then fight with the door handle and trip over the stair? You want to come home and press a button, enjoy technology, and the door must swing open for you, and enjoy coming to your house. and it self-closes. Now, what this does, I've been using it for the last like 15 years in my place. You don't need security because the door locks itself. You don't need a key anymore. It's keyless. It's a remote entrance. And from inside, if you want to answer the door, you just press the button and the door will open. So that technology is available. There's companies like Gezi and Tomax who do this every day. So look at that technology. It's not expensive. I mean, we open the garage door electronically and we just go in there once. But the front door and the other doors, which you go in and out of, we never electrify those. Consider electrifying that door. Then this or this story we got as that you have to have the 150 weather step. Absolute rubbish. That weather step that we're going to keep putting there is a trap. It's a trap of tripping on. Kids can't get through, and you don't need the weather step. You can design a seamless entry into your front door. So think about the weather step. Then the next point is the kitchen. The heart of the home is the kitchen, and the kitchen should be designed because kitchens are a place where everybody gets around, you have breakfast together, and it's a much more social space than your living room or any other room. It's kind of the most important space where you get conversation with. So ergonomically, your kitchen should be designed in such a way that you got the counter height at 800 is a good counter height. The shelf height or the first cupboard height should be 1400, because then you can reach whatever. There's no use having thousands of cupboards at 2.4 high, and every time you open the thing, all the pots fall on your head. So you've got to think about it. Don't leave it to the kitchen company, because they will put as many shelves in there and as many cupboards in there because it brings them revenue. So think about it. You can take all your excess stuff, stick in the pantry, stick into the storeroom, and put the bare essentials in your kitchen. It's like a car. They've designed the car inside with all the bare essentials, but then in an easily accessible way. So that's the kitchen. And then next is many houses have passages in them, and a little handrail on the passage is great because you can hang stuff on it, you can hold it to walk along, and a handrail is a very useful thing. So think about handrails. Then the two places in the house where you have the most accidents in is the kitchen. That's a bad spot because things are falling off the shelf on your head and you're getting burned on the stove and stuff like that. And the other place where most of our hip problems are and breaking of bones is in the bathroom. A bathroom should be minimum 2 by 2, and it should be seamless in that you should have a rolling shower. The step in the bathroom is in the shower is not necessary. You can get rid of that step. Then the question or the point about the door of a bathroom. The reason the door of a bathroom in a disabled toilet or bathroom opens outwards is because if you fall in the bathroom and you fall against a door, you can never be taken out. You're stuck against that door. Hence, that's why doors open outwards. Don't be afraid to make doors open outwards. It doesn't obstruct passages, but outward opening doors work really well. So that's it. And then finally, it's that social veranda, which, like the kitchen, is a place where you go out in the morning, have your cup of tea, enjoy the sun, and engage with your neighbors. People look at and get into the environment. So with that, when you're designing, try and put that one space where you can actually connect with outside and connect with people visually and talk to them from there. So that's my kind of very nuts and bolts story on how we're approaching these houses that we're doing. We're using Nadia, Chyvs, and these ideas as key design factors. And we're not kind of going for, we're looking for iconic, we're not looking for iconic buildings. But if we incorporate all these ideas that we're having, I think we'll have a proper home and not just a house. Yeah, that's me. Skura, that's me. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Iqbal. Any questions, any comments, colleagues? Mike? Can go ahead, Mike. I think you are muted. Mike, I don't know what maybe it's the speaker.
Okay.
There you go. Sure.
Sorry. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
thanks very much, Iqbal and Nadia. Wonderful. I'm just reminded of a fascinating project that I did in about 25 years ago called Youth for Environmental Accessibility. And Philip Thompson was consultant architect on disabilities, and absolutely fascinating working with him. And the one message that he told me, and when you talk about accessibility and all these things, Iqbal, it was a comment that I have never, ever forgotten, is that, Mike, when you and I, and Philip's wheelchair bound, he was involved in an airplane accident as an architect. He said, Mike, when you and I walk in the building, we should go through the front door together. And I've never forgotten that message. So I pass that on just to add to your wonderful work. Thank you very much.
Can I add to that? Can I add to that? Can I pitch a bit? You know, our city hall, for me to go to the city hall and get you anything, I have to go through some side back door. And because we're trying to observe the symmetry of the entry, for the last 30 years, I can't get to the front door of the city hall, and which is sad. When Nelson Mandela was coming to stay at King's House, we said, well, he can't get through the front door also. So they said, architects, and we looked at it, and they looked at it and said, well, you can come through the kitchen door. And John Searlis and Ari and all said, there's no way he should come through a kitchen door. So they redesigned, like the Institute, a ramp so that you'd come up through the main door. Our Institute is great like that we all come through the same door, we all meet at the same place. I mean, you look at that ramp which John Searlis did there. It's the greatest meeting point for everybody. Everybody goes and stands on that ramp and talks. So, Mike, point taken big. I mean, I went to the Unite building, which is a new building at the university. I had to go through the back door. And it's sad that we kind of put these things, and it's not about wheelchairs. It's about dignity for everybody. A mum with a pram doesn't have to use the back door. We all should come through front doors. Thanks, Mike.
When we went to, we had Public Works were involved in this program, Public Works and Youth Commission and various disability sectors in that. It was a youth development program to convert state buildings to make them accessible for persons with disabilities. And one day we were going to, and this is exactly what happened to me and Philip. We were walking down the road to get to the Public Works building in Pretoria, and Philip turned off right. He said, I'll see you just now. So I said, hang on, Philip, there are entrances. And he said he was going in through the service yards, negotiating his way through the service delivery trucks. And I said, Philip, hang on. So he said, Mike, there's only one lift, and that's a goods lift that I have to go up to the meeting on the third floor. So your efforts and your message is so important. Just keep at it. Thanks.
Skura, is Ari there now?
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, Ari is here, but I
Great.
think Johan wanted to say something before Ari comes in. Johan, you still have your comment?
Skura, yeah, thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think just with regard to potential professional work for the team that is so focused and so in tune, it would be great for architects to have some sort of relation, a long-term relation to say the speciality in the space, especially with the aging population and obviously accessibility. Is it possible to consider for the team to provide service to the fellow professionals?
Yeah. I mean, plus, we're open to talk to anybody. 066 255 8787. Just dial me and I'll talk to anyone, and we'll talk to anyone.
Okay, sure. Johan, Iqbal, you want to introduce Ari?
No, you want to introduce Ari.
I'm sure I did see him, yeah. Ari, thank you for joining us this morning. Yeah, we look forward to your presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Iqbal, thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words here this morning. And I want to open by saying it's a great privilege for me. I feel humbled, and I have engaged with many architects in KwaZulu-Natal, and I fondly see Ivor and Don here. So the old guard is still around. I'm presenting out of Sedgefield, and I want to focus on universal design. I think it is so critical to our freedom, existence, and movement in society. And having heard the presentation this morning, I think Iqbal, you and your team was spot on, and the questions were so relevant and well answered. And indirectly, they all actually speak to universal design. And just to mention, there was a comment just before I was introduced about back door, front door. At last, and it took a decade for SAB's Part S10400 to be changed so that it's legislated now that we have to have access through the front door. There's no more backdoor stuff. So we're grateful for that. And that experience that you had with Philip Thompson, rest in peace, should never happen to anyone who's using a mobility aid or a wheelchair in future. So it's quite relevant that you host this webinar today, because we're in the last few days of Disability Rights Awareness Month. And on the 3rd of December, next week, we will celebrate International Day for Persons with Disabilities. And to put into context how powerful architects are in our lives, especially with people with mobility impairments and physical disabilities, is that the simple definition embraced by persons with disabilities is disability is a combination between your health condition and the environment within which we live. Simple as that. I mean, I could add another 3-4 sentences that morph out of the Employment Equity Act, and there is a number of definitions floating around. But if you just grasp the concept that disability is a combination of your health condition and the environment within which we live, and if anybody is lucky enough to live a long life, you will move into that space of having a health condition, and then it's all about the environment within which you live as to how well you live, how free you live, and how much of the environment you can enjoy. So I can't impress enough to architects and everyone in this audience how important our lives are through your pen or your drawing board. It's really, really, you have the power to decide how disabled we are in any environment. That includes transport. So please remember that you wield this power, and if you don't embrace the concept of universal design, then you're just changing the lives of people. You're confining and restricting, and they use this word, people use this word, but it's not the right word, bound by a wheelchair. Only in inaccessible environments are we bound or confined by our wheelchairs. We're not confined by our wheelchairs in accessible environments. We use wheelchairs. Those are our items of mobility. We move from A to B. Only if we can by your sword or your pen. Rather your pen, not your sword, please. So in terms of disability politics, I've been an advocate for the rights of persons with disabilities for 3 decades. And I'm also the son of 2 architects. My mom and my dad were both architects. And one thing I remember fondly is at night hearing that old drawing board with the runners and the cable. Yeah, bzz, 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 and I know whether we're going up and down, left or right. And I know Don and Ivor especially will remember those sounds of the architects before the computer. And then I'd hear this razor blade when they were rubbing out a line that might not have been in the right place. So I remember those sounds very fondly. The white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities is the document that I believe architects should reference in understanding where does universal design fit into some sort of legislative framework. And I encourage you to look at the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities, and it's pillar 1 I suggest you look at. And pillar 1 talks about removing barriers to access and participation. And once again, you have the power to decide if barriers to access and participation are there or removed through your designs. The built environment includes all man-made surroundings that provide the setting for human activity, ranging from large-scale civic surrounds to personal places. And the current legislation regulating the built environment is not fully compliant with either international treaty obligations or constitutional impediments, as it does not facilitate or enforce the concept of universal design that will enable equitable access in the built environment. So universal design, it's not enforceable, but it can only come from you, the architect. And incorporated into the National Building Regulations, as you'll know, is SANS Part S 10400. And that's the document that I plead to you and suggest, please don't deviate. It's the minimum standard. I mean, there's a lot in it that I still think could be improved, but that's all we've got. All we've got, and we ask you to impose that upon your clients. And access first and aesthetic second. I think a lot of what Iqbal and his team said today actually implied that. Also, if you're involved in anything to do with transport, I don't know what happened to Go Durban, but I've assessed BRT Ria Vaya in Johannesburg, Arieng in Pretoria, the system they use in Cape Town, and it's all very well having either low bus, needing buses, or high platforms, but it still hasn't solved the problem for people with severe mobility impairments, and that is getting you from door to platform or door to door. And it could be improved. It's just so sad that 20 years ago, BRT was planned and spoken about, and it's probably 15 years ago that Durban started the exercise, but it seems that's a dead rubber for the moment. I want to cite an example of the flagrant abuse and disrespect for Part S 10400 that came over the desk of the Quad Para Association of South Africa. I was the CEO for 20 years, and I now serve on their board. So occasionally the office sends me these pieces of correspondence and asks, what do we do about this? And I'm not going to mention any names, and to my best ability, no places. But the Quad Para Association received this letter about 10 days ago from an architect firm, not in KwaZulu-Natal. I don't know why developments in KwaZulu-Natal aren't getting, developers aren't using KZN architects, but that's not my agenda for today. So I'm going to quote this so I just have to be a little bit careful. We request permission to reduce the number of wheelchair accessible rooms in the proposed new whatever hotel, and it's close to the city. That was the heading. There is a total of 198 rooms in the proposed hotel, 8 of which have been allocated as accessible rooms. This is based on Part S 10400. Okay, so we worked for decades to get this, call it the ratio, correct. Based on the room occupancy of the accessible rooms in the adjacent hotel development, the accessible rooms are underutilized and do not generate revenue. Underutilized and do not generate revenue. To the developer's discretion, a majority of hotels have underutilized accessible rooms. We propose reducing the number of wheelchair accessible rooms to 4. The letter has other content, but when I read this to you, even again, my blood boils a little bit to hear the words. It hurts me so much that underutilized and do not generate revenue. Okay, so I can go to, I don't want to give you my personal view of, let me just stick to the notes that I took. And then I had the opportunity to respond. And I'm going to read the response, not the whole letter, but part of it. And that is the essence of my lecture or my opportunity to address you today, is please hear their letter to us saying, well, the rooms aren't really being used, so can we reduce the number of rooms? I can cite a whole lot of analogies that will make my point, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm writing to address the recent request to reduce the number of accessible rooms required on whatever hotel development in terms of SANS 10400. While I appreciate the pressures and practical constraints that arise in large developments, it is essential to recognize that these regulations are not optional guidelines, but carefully considered standards established to safeguard equal access, dignity, and inclusion for all people. The disability sector is deeply concerned and frankly outraged by the proposal. The suggestion that the required number of accessible rooms be reduced on the basis that they are seldom used reflects a misunderstanding of both the purpose of the regulations and the lived experience of persons with disabilities. The reality is accessible rooms are often unavailable, not unnecessary, when they are designed to the correct standard, appropriately located and fairly priced. They are in demand, but many people with disabilities have simply learned not to expect availability due to decades of inadequate provision. SANS 10400 was not created in isolation. It is the direct outcome of years of consultation, advocacy, and policy development, including disability rights organizations, technical experts, and regulators. It ensures alignment with constitutional principles, human rights obligations, and the global movement towards universal design. Undermining these regulations risks reversing critical progress made over the years. Moreover, accessible hotel rooms are not a niche amenity. They serve a broad range of users: persons with permanent disabilities, older guests, people recovering from injury, pregnant women, environment designed with comfort and safety in mind. Accessibility is a good design. It enhances properties market research and reputation and long-term value. I'm going to stop there and hope that by citing a letter from an architect to the Quad Para Association, and then the response, and I believe that the response is a good way of influencing the architect, in this case, to say there's a bigger picture. The hotel group is saying, we're not making money from this room. We are saying, of course you can make money from the room. If it's well designed, inclusive of Part S 10400, half the time people don't notice that they're using the room that is really allocated for wheelchair users and persons with mobility impairments. As Iqbal said earlier, there's no purpose for having a step into a shower. There's wonderful purpose for having a shower seat, and there's incredible purpose for many people having a grab rail on the side. So without it necessarily being a wheelchair user, there's a lot of people that actually prefer to use that room. And the insult to say it doesn't generate any revenue. The rooms aren't given to wheelchair users for free. We pay rack rate, but I'm not using this forum and my talk today to have a go at the hotel group or this specific architect. I'm using this example to ask and plead all of you here that are architects that our disablement or our freedom lies in your hands. We have the legislation now. We are working towards a Disability Act that will give us an opportunity to challenge any misgivings or insults to us through, whether it be through design or human rights, in the courts. So we need a Disability Act, and we're probably a year away from getting it. But still, the power lies on your drawing board. And so I urge you to understand universal design and access as much as you can, and know that if you get it right, that you yourself will benefit from that same design. So Iqbal, thank you very much. And just keep in mind that this is the right month to have this engagement, and it would be a pleasure for me to engage with anybody. I'm not a consultant, I'm retired, and I would help anybody if they have any questions. I'm not an architect, but I have a very good understanding of universal design. I am a student of Philip Thompson's, and so would help any architect with as much time as they need if they have any queries about Part S 10400 or integrating people with mobility impairments into buildings or environments that you that you're designing. So thank you very much, Iqbal, and thank you very much, members of the KZN Institute of Architects.
Short, Ali, thanks.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you so much for that. I think it's very important for us as architects to hear that directly from a person who's been involved in the field for decades. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. I think what we'll do at the end of the session at some point, we'll circulate the white paper through the office just to remind all our members. Yeah, colleagues, any comments or any questions from that presentation?
Thanks, Ari, for your comments. Your mom and dad would be very thrilled for all you're saying. I was also in the same group as Don and Iva. I'm in that generation too.
Wonderful to see you guys still around.
Ori, Neil Hazehill here. I must thank you for the odd occasion that I phoned you for help. But on a lighter note and a serious note, you're a very brave man to remind everybody that you painted those lines on the disabled parking bay outside Durban City Hall. That was highly admirable and shows how much your commitment has been.
If you'll allow me, Iqbal, whoever's hosting, can I just say a bit more about that incident? And I want to mention other things, wheelchair parking, and I'll be a minute on each. There were far too few wheelchair parking bays in the city of Durban, Smith Street, West Street, and those running diagonally. So we wrote to the council many times, no response. So on a public holiday, about half a dozen of us wheelchair users, we went and picked up some labor in Alice Street. We bought the necessary paint. We had all the templates, and we went and painted a whole lot of. We painted out some just standard bays, and then we used the yellow paint as the other few bays, the same color as the other few bays that there are in the city centre. And we think we made about 10 parking bays. In that process, the police arrived, and we were all arrested. We weren't taken away, but they stopped there. They made us get rid of the labor, and we'd already painted 10 bays, and so we couldn't remove it then. And we were given sort of verbal warnings. There must have been 10 policemen there. The media did arrive as well. On the Monday, before close of business on the Monday, those bays had already been painted back to white by the municipality. So can you believe that they couldn't do that? They could paint them back to where they were in one day, and it took us 6 months without any response from the municipality to have those bays legitimized. Anyway, that's the one story. And I want to end off by talking about wheelchair parking bays, whose design and most importantly the width must be 3.5 meters wide. That's all you need to know. 3.5 meters wide as opposed to 2.5 meters wide for the standard bays. Now, my theory is if every single parking bay everywhere in any shopping center or facility was 3.5 meters wide, then we wouldn't have to designate wheelchair parking because the bays were wide enough for a wheelchair user to exit or enter from either side of the vehicle. So we could park anywhere. It's 1 of 400. We have to park in this area close to the location, close to the entrance of a building. And the bays, hopefully, not always, but hopefully, are 3.5 meters wide. They are lined up for abuse, not because of their width. They're abused because of their location. Now, I don't expect architects to be policemen, but if you just understand so that when you have the conversation with people, it's just quite clear. We never wanted the location. We never fought for the location. We fought for the width. So it made sense to developers and everybody to say, well, let's make sure it's close to the entrance. There is reference to how close it should be in Part S 10400. But we now have to contend with bays that are allocated to women with children or women with prams. I understand it, but there's a bit of grey area and a bit of overlapping. Most importantly, using this, talking about wheelchair bays, it's the width that allows us to get access to whatever facility we want to go to. It's not that we want to park close to the entrance. And unfortunately, the application process, every municipality has their own application process for you to qualify for their particular DISC or accreditation. And the criteria is so light that 1/3 of our population has these DISCs in the municipalities that they live in. There's no national parking DISC policy, which we are working on at the moment. But please just remember, we want the width, not the location. And that's why we always abused. I see very few people abuse loading zones. There's something more formal and more intimidating about a loading zone than a wheelchair parking. Most people say, well, let's just use the parking for a few minutes. They'd never do that on a loading zone. So I just thought I wanted to cite that example. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Iggy, I'm not sure if you want to just summarize in closure. Maybe let me take Hasvi first. Hasvi, you may comment.
Thank you, Skr. Morning, Ari. I'm Haji Sakupanya. I'm joining you from Zimbabwe. And I just wanted to say thank you for taking a stand to that request to reduce the number of accessible hotel rooms. And I think it's important that as architects, we're not seen to be making things expedient or easier for developers or commercial enterprises. But if it's a set minimum, we have to make it work with our client, with the developer. And how they make money out of it is something that they need to revisit in their business model. Because like you rightly say, this has been a combination of years and years of advocacy, of raising awareness. So thank you for not making it easy or comfortable. And we do need to change the way we think in our design process as architects with respect to inclusive design, inclusive accessibility, and not just in buildings, but even in our public infrastructure. So our pavements, our bus stops, there's a lot that still needs to be done. But thank you for raising the awareness and thank you for taking a stand.
Thank you. Just allow me to respond to say, I doubt you would ever get a letter saying, well, there's never been a fire in a hotel in Umhlanga for the last 50 years. Can we rather reduce by 50% the number of fire extinguishers and which is terribly expensive to put into a building because they're hardly used, fire extinguishers. I mean, no, you would never write a letter like that. Then why are you reducing our opportunity to use the hotel?
Thank you, Hasvi.
Sorry,
Darren.
if I can make one last comment, one last request, actually,
Okay.
and Kiara and KZN Architects. I would suggest that we have a morning breakfast with Ori, if he's prepared to do it, to actually deal with Part S and the background, notably that Ori is one of the originators of Part S.
Noted, Neil.
Yeah, I would be available. So it's up to the institute, but I would be happy to do a presentation and give the background, as you say, Neil. I did serve on that committee um, from the 90s, actually, with Philip and Joan. And the other thing is for us to make sure that there's always an architect or two on SQ 59, and that's the committee that deals with any changes or improvements on Part S10400.
Thank you, Ari. Okay, we have to close. Iki, any last words?
No, all good. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nadia. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ari, for your contribution to the architectural community this morning. We really appreciate the presentation. Thank you so much.